Alright, I have now disassembled the steam engine, and the first thing I'm going to show you here is the crank, because it's probably the most interesting feature of this particular model. And if you can see here, I've put flats on, and you can also see two of the flats line up with each other because they line up with the hole that goes down the body, and the one flat lines up with the intake port and the other flat lines up with the exhaust port. So what I've done to the body here is cut it out, machined it, drilled a hole all the way down into the brass bushing here to let the air travel up, and the air comes out of this hole and matches up with the hole in the cylinder bore. There's just a shot down the cylinder bore. Here's the cylinder and the rod and the wrist pin. Nothing too fancy. I've put a little pen spring in there to keep the rod from walking off the crank. And here's my flywheel. I've just used a piece of steel, pressed a piece of aluminum in there. Gives it a little bit of a different look, a little more fancy than if it was just all steel. Yep, that's a steam engine. It needs a little bit of sanding and polishing to look tip top, but it's functioning well, and yeah. These are the plans I based it off again. It's a Elmer design. What I've done is I increased the bore and the stroke, and of course the distance between the center of the crank and the beginning of the cylinder bore, to give the rod a little bit of room. I've also relocated the exhaust port from an Elmer's design. He calls for it to come out the center of the crank, and because I used a dowel pin for the crank, I could not drill through it, and instead I just put the flat to exhaust right out there.